You feel that things are going wrong, this is a great time to give you really good news. Hi, this is Dr. Anita with another Diamond Moment. The diamonds of our lives are produced through time, heat, and pressure. And it's going to be up to you, the individual, to gather the value from your experiences in order to grow in this life. If these messages have enlightened you or helped you in any ways, please like, subscribe, share, and I'd definitely like to hear your comments. We're going to continue moving forward as we've been talking about 3D, 4D, and 5D. I shared with you that the beauty of 4D is growth. That combined with the power of 5D, which moves us to an entirely different place in our lives. As I said, if you have been feeling as though things are terrible, that it couldn't get worse, then you are at a place of excellent news, and that is you're at the place to begin to live intentionally. What I mean by that is deciding who you want to be, where you want to go, who you choose to be around. And once you make those decisions as it relates to the foundation of who you are, then you're ready to begin determining your future. I want to give you another term that you may or may not be familiar with, but it's called contrast. We're able to determine night from day because of the contrast in the light. When we experience contrast, it allows us to decide what we prefer most and what we prefer least. And I'm saying that in that way so that you understand that every situation that faces you, you have the ability to choose that which you prefer most, which you would most like to have, or choose that which you prefer least, what you would least like to have. But it all rolls back to you, the individual. If you are in that position of 3D life, and again, I'll define it as moving through on this physical plane, birth, life, as we grow from childhood to adolescence to adulthood. So we're looking at the linear movement of time from birth, your life, to death, and also that duality of black and white, yes or no. Because as we grow, as we mature, we find out that there are a lot of shades between black and white. And sometimes who we are falls within those shades. It's not one or the other. It's not either or. Sometimes it's and. It's and. It's not this or that, but it could be either or. I like this better than I like that, or this feels better to me than that does. Once we're able to have that individual contrast in life, it opens up our ability to choose what is right for us. So, living in the United States, there's a lot of talk about what's going on within the country, how we interact with our neighboring countries, Canada and Mexico. Where do we fall in that scale? Where do we fall? And it's necessary for us to make a decision about our lives and where we want to be, because it is in doing so that we attract to ourselves more of what we want, more of what we prefer, and less of what we least prefer, because now we're doing it from a conscious level. This entire platform has been based on developing, becoming who you were intended to be. And I've said this, that becoming is a process, and that process has stages. And sometimes as we're moving from a 3D world to having a understanding in that fourth dimension that something doesn't sit right with me, going back, reviewing, looking at, evaluating, challenging, and then coming to that enlightened place of 5D, where we may not know everything, but I do know that this portion of where I am up to this time in my life feels better or does not feel better. But once we are able to determine that, now we have the contrast that we needed in our lives to make an informed decision. Am I leaning more towards one direction or another? And then as I make that 4D understanding that something is not quite right in the 3D, something's not quite right where I live and move right now, and then come to question that, as we've said many times before, challenging, limiting beliefs, limiting interactions that we've had, and then looking at why. What the basic thing that you're to do in this world as a spiritual being is to refer back within to that spirit which is within, that higher self, that higher you that is connected to the universe, God, creator, source, all things. And as we do that, we're able to find a place within ourselves, because we've grown in that area. We've moved from just chugging along on a linear basis with everything's either right or wrong, to being able to say, no, there are some contrasts here. There's some differences here. And in that, now that I am operating from that perspective, I can continue moving forward until I have that feeling that, that doesn't quite feel right. That gives us the indication that there's something else that we need to challenge, we need to evaluate, we need to come to a different level of, do I prefer this more or do I prefer something else more? Every time that we do this, we're growing. Every time that we go back and challenge how we feel and look for a way to put it in perspective so that we're able to take that deep breath and say, okay, now I understand. Now I have it. But every time we are confronted with something that we least prefer, we have the option to look for what we most prefer, what we would rather have than what we know that we do not desire to have. So, as we look around and we see what's taking place in our environment through wherever we're living, if you feel as though this is exactly where you need to be, hopefully you're doing that and thinking that in a way that doesn't harm others. So, looking and becoming comfortable with giving harm to others may be something that we need to look at. Why am I comfortable if I'm okay, but you're bleeding? Okay? What about that makes me comfortable? And when we look at these things, again, what do I most prefer? What do I least prefer? And why am I thinking that way? As we go back, as we review the interactions that we have with people, as we review what we're seeing around us, as we are asking questions on issues that maybe we weren't familiar with, as we are getting and having the opportunity to Google it, to research, as we're listening from within to be able to determine what makes me feel good within. What am I receiving from God, Creator, Source? How am I taking care of myself so that I can hear what's going on within me? Once we're able to do some of those type exercises, as we're able to do this and grow, we gain greater contrast between who we are and who we want to be. If there is a point in any area, and again, we're looking at this from more than one perspective. We're looking at it from a spiritual perspective, a physical, a social, an emotional, a financial, looking at it all the way around and being able to get to the place where we feel as though we are centered. We feel as though we're operating out of a place that not only is good for me, but is also good for others, where I'm not hurting others in order to gain something for myself. Because if we do that, you'll find that you're back at one of those 4D moments of saying, that doesn't seem right. To be able to go back, to reevaluate, to challenge, and to come back out of that decision or that process a different and a better person, one who is closer to being able to feel within that this is who I am. This is who I legitimately am. I'm representing now who I am, not who somebody wanted me to be, not what I thought I could do and realize that those shoes don't fit me at all. This is not who I am. You've got to have contrast in order to determine that. And that is the really good news about where we are today. We're able to look around and make a conscious decision on what I prefer and what I don't prefer. We're able in that to look back at our own decisions and say, did I make this decision with the intent to hurt somebody else? Or did I make this decision with the intent to help all that I could? And once we do that, again, that level of contrast brings us to the place where we're able to determine, if I had this to do over again, that I wouldn't do. If I had this to do over again, I absolutely would do this. If I had the chance to do it over again, this is the way I would proceed and move forward so that I can be more of who I feel as though I'm comfortable with, that I can be more of that instead of less than that, because I'm looking outside of myself for the direction of which way I should go. If you haven't done so, I'm going to ask you to get your Diamond Journey Journal and begin to take an active role in deciding who you choose to be. Be able to look at these areas of contrast and decide, make a plan on how you would like to change things in your life, on what you feel that you could do to make your life better, to enhance your relationships, to enhance those areas of your life that you feel are still in the growth process. Join me on NoomVibe. I am on NoomVibe, where you can catch me live and ask questions if you choose to. You can interact with me there in a live format. or join me on FanBase. And above all, if you haven't done so, please visit my website at www.DrAnitaMc.com. That's DrAnitaMc.com. Join me next week for another Diamond Moment.